I'm not saying that reviewers are anything special. Like we're just people who talk about things. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers came out about 4 days ago, and most people feel like that is an appropriate amount of time for reviewers to really buckle down and understand everything about the album, all the themes, every lyric, just everything they're trying to say, and also be able to give it a number rating because it's a Kendrick album. You have to put out a rating right away. If you don't put out a rating, then what are you doing? And if that rating isn't a 10, we're gonna have some words in the comments. We should talk about that. So if you haven't seen, there's been two major reviews that have come out for Kendrick's album that you could consider unfavorable in the sense that they weren't 10s or 9s. And the reviews I'm talking about come from Pitchfork and Fantano, who gave it a 7.6 and 8, respectively. Both pretty good reviews. I mean, if you ask me, most albums are 7s, and then 7s are still pretty good. I mean, you think you're going to go find an album that's 8 or 9 or even a 10 and just every day? Like, that's not easy. Like, you can't expect people to put out that level of music and quality all the time, especially right now. Like, no one's doing that. I mean, a 7 is sufficient, honestly. 7s are good. Like, anything below a 7, okay, that gets a little bit iffy, but, you know, I mean, in general, if it's a 7 and up, it's a good album. Like, y'all should chill. With ratings in general, you have to take into consideration how each reviewer reviews things. And this doesn't apply strictly to music. It applies to movies, to video games, a whole bunch of things, which I'll touch on in a minute. But with music specifically, especially with places like Pitchfork, who have like a whole crew of writers and reviewers, each reviewer is going to handle each album differently. Whoever reviews Kendrick's album may really enjoy it versus someone who normally reviews like a Death Grips album, for example. That might not be the best example because this is close enough and you could make the argument that it's experimental and yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you can have people who listen to two completely different styles of hip-hop or things that could be categorized as hip-hop or rap, and they have completely differing opinions. I mean, for example, I really enjoyed Kendrick's album, but I have a friend who's just kind of on it. Like, they liked it overall, but it wasn't like it blew them away. But that gets into a whole lot of other things regarding topics and how you relate to an album as well, like, which also does play a little bit into the review. But what I'm talking about with these individual reviewers is like everyone has their own review style and their own tastes. What one reviewer enjoys in general isn't what you're necessarily going to review or the next person is going to enjoy. Sorry. For example, like with Fantano. Yeah, in general, I feel like my musical tastes align with what he what he says and what he feels like and what he likes. So that's why I generally listen to him. I don't listen to him strictly for the number rating though, because aside from the whole like, oh, each reviewer reviews things differently, they all have a different aspect and look or outlook on things. The ratings to me feel like it oversimplifies things. And I probably talked about this before too, now that I think about it, but with ratings, you really just water down everything. You have people who are so accustomed to just seeing your video come up, you're like, oh, it's a review. Let me skip to the very end because that's where you're going to say the rating. And it's kind of fucked up because, I mean, in terms of monetization and stuff, it does matter if people actually watch stuff, but you know, it kind of diminishes the effort that you put into it. Because I'm not saying that reviewers are anything special. Like, we're just people who talk about things. But for me, I mean, sometimes I can spend hours and days even on reviews. There's been times where I've taken weeks, like, just because I got to sit with the album a lot longer than other people. And I was like, okay, well, I don't even know where to start with this or like how in depth to be. That's why for my reviews, I never actually give a rating, like, because I know everyone's gonna hand or take whatever this album is differently. Like I mentioned with my friend, like I loved the album and they thought it was okay. So you can't expect everyone to have the same sort of feeling and understanding. That also gets into perspective and all that, but that's one thing. But going back to the thing about actually giving number ratings, like it, to me, at least in music, it diminishes a lot, because in general, with music, we don't get to sit and listen to it for extended periods of time. We get it on Friday. I mean, I'm speaking for myself in general. Like, yeah, I've gotten albums early, but that's not all the time. Like, that's very, very rare compared to how many albums I listen to and review. But, very rarely do we get to listen to an album before it releases on Friday night or Thursday night. Like, we listen to it at the same time as everyone else, if that. And then again, speaking from just general, but like, after that, it's like you're expected to put out your thoughts and your actual review as soon as possible. Now, if you can and if you want to, that's totally fine. I mean, that's why I've done like just kind of first impressions videos recently, because there's things I'll say in that versus the actual review. But personally, I don't think I would have enough to say within 12 to 18 hours of the album dropping, because like I'm on the West Coast. I listen, like, albums come out at 9. I'm not always available to listen to an album right when it drops. Sometimes I don't listen to it until Friday. So then how do I have enough time to actually put out a video? Compared to things like movies and video games. I know embargoes are getting weird with video games. Like, that's honestly kind of shitty, and I wish that they wouldn't do that. Embargoes in the sense that they take a long time to actually put out the review. Like, they wait till like day before it releases, which is fine, honestly, because not everyone should be pre-ordering games, but that's another thing. The issue sometimes now is that video games aren't getting review copies sent out, which is not good. Like, I don't like that. But anyways, the thing is, in general, and in the past, reviewers have been able to have early access to these things. And if they have early access to these things, they've sat with it for a little longer, or if they watch the movie at an early screening, they're able to talk to people about it. Like, I don't know how screenings work, because I'm not important enough to go to a movie screening, but I imagine you're able to talk to the people involved, or have a better chance to talk to people involved. Even with video games, you can talk to the developers or whoever your contact is at that particular publisher. Like, they're going to be more easy to talk to, rather than trying to talk to an artist right when their album came out and they're getting flooded with mentions on Twitter and Instagram. Like, that's, that it's not easy to really get a hold of them. Now, that's one thing, and I'm not saying that needs to change, because honestly, I'm fine with how music's being released right now. Like, yeah, get it out to the people who will actually review it and not leak it, because leaking music kind of fucks things up too. But, if I feel what I'm trying to get at is music reviewers need a little bit more time to sit with music sometimes, and that they should be okay with that. Like, not they, but like the viewers should be okay with that. It's easy to be like, oh, why didn't you review this yet? I'm waiting for your review to listen to this album. But are you really, though? Are you really just waiting for someone to review? Like, you can't just go to Spotify and hit play and then form your own opinions of it? It seems kind of silly to me. Now, I'm not discrediting reviews. Like, please watch reviews. Like, overall, reviews are good because they help you understand it. Like, personally, I tend to lean more towards reviews that are more like theme focused. Like, Professor Sky is really good at that. His reviews are long, and honestly, that's the style of review that I would love to do, but I'm just not smart enough, and I would just ramble. He's a teacher, so that makes it easy. But all I'm saying here is, each reviewer has their own style. If you find a reviewer that you enjoy listening to and like appreciate their opinions, great. But also, don't take their opinions and ratings as gospel, because that kind of diminishes how we as people function, right? Like, we should all be able to form our own opinions. Now, I'm not immune at all to having opinions and feelings about other reviews, but at the end of the day, I also understand that reviews are reviews. For example, I was sent a few Pitchfork reviews recently, and the one that really stood out to me was Clipping's Visions of Bodies Being Burned getting a 6. And to me, that's one of Clipping's best albums. Giving it a 6 is insane. But this person gave it a 6. And my gut feeling is like, oh, they're wrong, but I get it. Like, even in my review of the album, like, this is not for everybody. Like, I loved it, but that doesn't mean you're going to. So, at the end of the day, take the time to listen to albums on your own and, go from there. Form your own opinions. And then if you want to try to understand an album more or see if there's something that you missed, that's when you should check out reviews too. I mean, that's how I feel at least. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Just keep in mind that reviewers are people. They have their own opinions and they're entitled to their opinions. Like, you shouldn't go after them and hate on them because their opinion doesn't align with yours. Like, that's one thing. Another thing is just take the time to form your own opinion. It's not that hard. It's not hard. Like, just take a minute. Anyways, that's all I got. Let me know in the comments below if there have been times where you don't necessarily agree with reviewers or reviewers that you actually like. Like, if you like my reviews, I mean, I'm sure there's been times that you don't agree with me. I've seen it in the comments every so often, so I get it. But also, just tell me how your day's going. I'm curious. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content and ramblings like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.